Hello and welcome back. Now today's subject's a little kind of simple, but I'm going to go over it anyway. Just help some of y'all out. Now we're going to be installing some hood pins in our 80 model C10, now known as the Black Widow. And usually putting hood pins on, it's pretty simple, easy to do, but I'm just going to go over it, kind of show y'all a few things I do put hood pins in. Now, the most important thing is measuring. You don't want each hood pin off and it'll look funny when you got one over here. Just this one's 6 inches away from the fender. This one's 4 inches, so it's going to throw you off. It's going to look funny. You don't want that. So mainly the biggest thing is to measure and get it right. Now, usually my first step is to find some good point to measure from and where I'm going to put the hood pin. Now on the trucks I usually put the hood pin in this part of the core support right here, because one, it's easier to go through the hood there. Two, it's pretty solid. Usually what I do is I'll find a point, like let's say from the fender here, and then I'm going to go inwards and make sure there's nothing in the way when I drill through. Now, like on the back side of this core support, we have the ground for the light, so we want to avoid that. So I'm going to try to figure out where exactly I want it, how far in I want it. Then I'm going to find a good point of measurement, and you may have to use a straight edge from here. Make sure it's good and straight. And then you find out your measurement to the center here. And then you repeat the process on this other side. Make sure your measurements look pretty accurate on here. And then what I like to do is a little bit different. And now with the hood shut is a different thing I like to do. I'll come out here, go right up against the fender where I was, and I will mark my measurements on top of the hood very lightly. And then using the same straight edge, I'll find my measurement. I'm going to use my thumb to keep it in place while I do the straight edge. Mark it again. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. Now with my drill, come right to the center of that spot and very carefully and easily drill through. Drill through the hood, through the core support with the pilot bit. Usually start off with something small. And I'll pop the hood and double check it's where I want it. Make sure 100% it's where I want it. Make sure it clears everything. And it's best to do that when you use a pilot bit. That way it's a small hole if you got to move it over a little bit. Not like you're moving a big hole over. And then we'll step up bits. Now I'm just going to take a larger drill bit. Carefully go through. Make sure you drill straight. Now if you're drilling on a surface that's painted, afraid of damage, be sure to put some tape down when you're drilling through. That way you don't damage the paint. Now when drilling your holes out, be sure to put a little bit of tape. You can do this after the pilot hole, but it helps when you do it before the pilot hole. That way you don't damage any of your paint. Now luckily, usually you got some kind of guard with your hood pins, So if there is a little bit of damage around the hole, the guard for the hood pin will cover it up. Alright, now you're going to step up your drill bits until you get the drill bit just slightly big enough to where your pin, hood pin, will slide into your core support. Now, remember, the hood will shut at an angle. So what you need to do is you will have to go a little bit larger on the hole in the hood. Now, depending on what kit you buy, you can buy the old school ones, or I went with a different style. Now, if you can see, this spot's actually larger than this, so the hole will definitely have to be bigger and kind of elongated slightly in order to make these fit. Now again, the old ones are kind of straight up and pointed. It'll be a little easier, and you only get to do just slightly enlarge the hole, so when you shut the hood, the angle ain't going to affect it so much, and it'll go straight where you need it to go. Alright, now if you can see, here's our hood pin. Now, these kits always come with 2 bolts for each pin and some washers. Now, sometimes they'll drop low enough where you can get down here and put the nut on the other side so you can tighten it down and keep it where you want it. In this case, we can't get to it, so I'm going to drill a pilot hole on this back side of the core support and then slowly start enlarging the hole till it's large enough where I can get the nut on the bolt so we can tighten it down and keep it in place once we get it set where we want it. Now I'm going to mark it. We're going to go right about there with it. Pull the pin out so we don't damage it with the drill bit, and then we'll start drilling. Alright, so basically, once you drill that hole for the nut, you're going to adjust the hood pin height. Now you're going to want to adjust it in a way where it's not going to be difficult or hard to work the hood pin itself. Now sometimes you have to cut the bottom of the pin off a little bit because it may not go all the way down through the core support, or if you're able to drill all the way through the core support for that to drop all the way down, put the nut on the bottom, that's acceptable too. Now you don't have to drill, you can use a cut-off wheel and cut the back side of it out to get the nut in as well. In this case, since our core support actually angles like that underneath, we went ahead and just drilled through it so that this will actually sink all the way down. And then we put the nut through that hole in the back side. And you're just going to take your time and adjust the height little by little until you get it where you want, and then make sure to tighten it down really well. Now what helps is to hold a flathead screwdriver in here while you take a wrench, turn that nut and make sure it's tight. You're going to want to make sure the top and bottom's tight, and that's what holds it in place real well. Then you're going to attach these. Now for something like just a plain steel hood, it's pretty simple and easy. Just set this on there, run self-tappers into the holes, and you're fine. Now, what comes with this kit are these little itty-bitty tiny screws. Now, that doesn't really seem to do the case for me. Now, you can also, like on fiberglass, use pop rivets, which is probably a little stronger. But on this kit, on the slider, you can see that you got a limited amount of space to get through there. What we're doing is with a little bit of sealant, we're actually upgrading these larger screws, self-tappers. But right through here, it's not going to fit in between that groove. So we're going to use the ones that came with the kit there. Now luckily for the most part, the way these are designed is even if you screw into the fiberglass and seal them, you're not really getting pull in the fiberglass. You're actually getting pull on the pin itself. Where this locking pin goes through the hole there, that's where the pressure is. It's not really pulling around the hood. So if you don't have a long enough pop rivets or a hand pop rivet tool or a pop rivet gun, you may be able to get away with using some kind of screw, or you can drill through, if you got room for it to shut, a nut and a bolt, or screwing a bolt, or screwing a nut on the back side, nut on the back side. But just make sure this is on there and this is good. The other hood pin style, where you just got the round dish that goes around the pin, it purely is just to protect the hood on it. So you can just put regular screws into it and it should be fine. But now what we're going to do is just attach this to the hood and we're good. Now just a little quick note, if you're using pop rivets or larger screws that come with the kit in this, you're going to want to drill out these holes first before you put them in, otherwise it's going to cause you a little bit of trouble. Now as you can see, the hood pin's in place. Now sometimes with these styles, I always had the issue for a little while. Sometimes they'll get stuck back there for a little bit until they wear out a little bit, depending on who made them. But there it is. Now you could turn that around you wanted to and have it facing the other direction if you want. That's totally up to you. I've seen people put these in sideways. This is the way I normally put them on. Just for the simple fact I come to the front of the hood, front of the truck, and just pull back. Now there it is. We got both our hood pins installed. Now it's pretty simple and easy to do, especially if you got the right tools and already know what you're doing. Now for some people, may have a little bit of trouble and may not know exactly where to start, and this is really what that was for. And it's pretty simple. Once you've done one, you just do them on anything really. Just make sure you find a good strong support section to bolt the pin to, and you're really good from there. Now a lot of time hood pins are used for looks or for actually safety reasons. Now if you ever been going down the road and had a hood latch fell on you and the hood pop up, it gets kind of scary. So having hood pins is really just kind of have a safe bet, especially like on this hardwood fiberglass hood. Now I have not really got to driven it very much yet, go down the road in this truck very far, but the way this hood kind of latches, it does scare me a little bit, so the hood pins are a little bit of safety there. Of course, if you're running a pin on hood, you're going to have pins all the way around. But just the two hood pins on the front gives you a little bit of extra safety, especially at high speeds. But there it is. So hopefully this video proved helpful to you. And as always, thanks for watching.